Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel MMA, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy.
Hey, Miguel MMA back here on the Lights Out podcast. Mike Davis, the MMA detective, is on the other side of the glass here, so to speak. And, we got another deep dive coming up here. We got Chris Lytle waiting in the wings. He's got another UFC title holder. We're in pretty good territory here, Mike. Who do we got?
We got Frankie Edgar.
Hey, East Coast guy, too. That's good.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, ever since we started kind of tagging these East Coast guys, the volume of downloads that have been coming from New York, it's astounding.
Matt Serra helps with that too,
Yeah, they support their fighters. They're in Australia. It's incredible. Just the kind of return we get in regards to, people watching our stuff. So we got former UFC champ Frankie Edgar. He fought in either one or two, I'm not sure. I know for sure one, illegal bouts in the Bronx when MMA was illegal in New York. And, he's going to bring us through. We're going to go all the way up until to completion of his Gray Maynard trilogy. And, we'll save him for another time in the future. So we're going to take his early career all the way up to the completion of the trilogy.
I'm excited. Here we go. East Coast lightweight champion, Frankie Edgar, all the makings of a great interview.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Once again, thank you. Our favorite time right now, deep dives. We got good deep dives. You know that. I'm not going to break my arm patting ourselves on the back, but we get some really good guests here. Mike, don't we get good people? I'm amazed at the kind of caliber of people we bring in. A lot of good old school guys. Fantastic. But, we got a rare treat right now, maybe one of our best ones, former multi-champion, fantastic fighter, been around for a long time. Just all around a great guy everybody likes. And thing you don't like about this guy, you can't fight on the same card with him because he might try to take your bonus. It's not cool when people do that type of stuff, Jimmy. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Frankie Edgar, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Chris, man. It's good to catch up with you.
Yeah, man. Like I said, you've been on some of the greatest fights, especially comebacks of all time, man. So we're just really happy to have you here. A couple of things I like to start off just going in. Can you give us a little bit of your background? What led you to the sport? I mean, I know a little bit about your background, but I want to make sure everybody gets, how did you go from A to B? What kind of sports did you do growing up and what led you to MMA?
Yeah, I mean, I wrestled pretty much growing up. I guess 7th grade. It's a little late considering today's time, starting wrestling. But I started wrestling, a young age. Dipped and dabbled in a bunch of sports, I guess, throughout my life. But, wrestling was the main focus once I got to high school. Then college. And then after college, I, Ultimate Fighter show, season 1 was on and, caught my eye. And I remember watching UFC 1 or 2 when I was, 13 years old and being awed by the sport and all that. And I was like, I'm definitely going to give this a shot. I didn't know, I just wanted to do it just to say I did it, and see where we go, where we could take it. And I graduated from college, found the place, started training. I think I fought a month later, and that was the start of it.
So you wrestled for Rutgers, correct?
No, I wrestled for Clarion University.
Okay.
It's like Western PA.
Okay. How did you do in high school and everything?
Yeah, I was a 2-time state place winner in high school, 2nd and 5th. I took 2nd high school nationals.
Wow.
But then, and in college, I was a 4-time All-American, 4-time national qualifier. I missed being an All-American my senior year in the blood round, which was pretty heartbreaking, but, turned it around a little bit.
Nice.
So, Frankie, you have an amateur fight, but there's nothing listed online. It's just notated that you had one amateur fight. Was that the Underground Combat League, or was there something prior to that?
Yeah, no, that was the Underground Combat League. That was, that
amazing.
fight was pretty wild fight. I don't think they do those anymore.
So July 10th, you guys got to hear this. This right here proves he's an old school cat. July 10th, 2005 Underground Combat League. It was in the Bronx, New York. Why don't you set the table for it because it's a pretty wild story from what I could find in my research.
Yeah, it's it was in the Bronx, New York. Like Mike was saying, I remember driving up, middle of summer, it's hot as hell. Driving up to the city, it was a Sunday, and I worked all week. I worked all the way till Friday. I remember digging some friggin' hole. I'm like, man, I got to fight Sunday. I need to take it easy. So I just remember being real hot, walking in a boxing gym. I believe the name. I don't recall the name.
Jerome
gym in the Bronx.
Boxing Club.
Yeah. I wasn't gonna sell them out, but I guess you did. So
Mike's a cop. That's what he does.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah. I don't even think that they're there anymore. So we're clear now. But yeah, I ended up being the main event of this night, and it was wild. It was there was no weigh-in, there was no ambulance, nobody, no doctors or anything, and I end up being the main event. And I'm fighting. We said it's 1 15-minute round, literally no rules.
Eric Uresek.
Yeah, Eric Uresek. Yep. And at the time, like when they told me, like, he was, supposed to his next buzz, he was gonna make it to the UFC. This is what people were saying. This is my first fight ever. I'm like, geez, wow. All right. I was like, well, I guess might as well jump in a fire, and I went out there, and I remember he was a New York guy, so I was everybody screaming for my demise. And we go out there, and I always wanted to try my stand up. Just learned it pretty much 2 weeks ago, and I'm going out there, and he grabs me in a tie clinch and bangs me with 2 pretty good knees. I shuck him off, and I end up throwing some punches and take him down. I end up stopping him ground and pound. I did headbutt him in the fight. I headbutt him because we were allowed to, and I get the win. All pumped up. I go out to dinner with my team and family, and I look like I didn't get into a fight at all. I was a little sore, had a little bloody nose. I went to go blow my nose, and my whole eye just blew up with air. And I'm like, what the hell happened? And then the first thing now I know the deal. You don't blow your nose if you broke your face or your nose. And me and my friends I'm sitting there trying to push the eye out of my airball or the air out of my eyeball. And I said, I guess I could, go back to work Monday, maybe fighting's for me.
Okay. So
wow.
Well, real quick
Chris, wait.
Go ahead.
I got to set the table on this.
Go ahead.
2005, New York, completely illegal. MMA is not allowed in that state. Second, the only way you got to that event was by word of mouth. No one was allowed in. I talked to some people that were there. They said no one was allowed in unless you knew somebody and they questioned you at the door.
Wow.
So you wind up in the main event basement. They said it was like 100 degrees in there. And they said, it was hot. But they also said there was almost a fight between the Jersey people and the New York people. Like a riot almost broke out because Eric is like a real popular guy from that area.
Yeah. It was wild. People drinking 40s in the stands. It was a boxing ring. And I look back, I think of some videos. My old man is on the ropes, grabbing the ropes when I'm fighting. It was wild, Definitely a great experience.
You went there with your dad?
My dad, I didn't go with him, but he ended up there. He ended up there with some of my buddies.
So
you've been training about a month, you said, for that? You've been training like a month, right? Yeah,
I graduated college in end of May, and that fight, I think, was the beginning of July. So I trained, probably that in between that time.
Where were you training? Was there good, legitimate fighters there, or were you kind of the top guy? How was that going?
Yeah, well, I actually, Kurt Pellegrino was in the UFC, I think, at the time, and I sought him out, and he was actually just moving to Florida, but the school, someone came over and took his school over, so I just like, all right, I guess I'll train here. I just kind of ended up there, and I trained there for a couple of years until I ended up with Ricardo Almeida.
Okay. Why would they make you the main event if it was your first fight and you've been training a month? They just kind of said, hey, this guy knows how to wrestle. We know how good he is, how athletic and everything. Is that way?
Yeah, I think the guy that owned the gym was kind of throwing me to the wolves, really.
No, and Chris, his opponent sold half the place out.
He wasn't supposed to win.
No.
Frankie wasn't supposed to win. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
That's all. So, okay, real quick, one more thing. Man, when I first started fighting, headbutts were legal, knees to the head on the ground. I kind of personally like the more freedom to be able to do whatever. It made people act different. That you got to like real fighting after that. Do you like that old kind of fighting, or do you like the newer kind, or both, or different? Or what do you think?
I'm kind of old school. I mean, it's maybe not like the best thing to say, but I think everything should be legal. You know, barring biting and eye pokes, maybe. You know, everything. Let it all go.
I agree, man.
It's because I mean this what's going to be outside. You know, you're going to do it all, right?
I love it. I talked about the Brazilian guys and the Vale Tudo guys, and everybody's like, you have to headbutt. You know?
Yeah. No,
they like the more the better. You know? I mean, that's what I think. Sorry, Miguel, go ahead.
No. I just wanted to ask our standard. Are you? Did you get in a lot of street fights as a kid? Are you one of those guys? Or are you like you competed in wrestling and this is competition for you? What's your mindset?
No, I grew up fighting a lot. I mean, I grew up in Jersey. Everyone thinks they're a tough guy. You know what I mean? So
okay. Cool.
The boy, I you know, we're Seaside, the Jersey Shore show and all that. I pretty much grew up there on that boardwalk. So you always dealt with people all the time. I enjoyed it. I had fun doing it. You know, I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, I honed my skills a little bit on the boardwalk sometimes.
Okay.
Hopefully you punched those guys on the show a couple times growing up.
Yeah, you know, I didn't get none of that. My podcast partner is actually Roger Maltese. He's JWoww's ex-husband.
Okay.
Nice.
So
I got arrested in Spring Lake down there in college. So
So Chris, the one guy I spoke to that was there said, and there was this real skinny guy, one of Frankie's people, talking shit to all of us. He's like, from what I understand, while you guys were leaving, you were talking shit because like he sold the place out, and it was kind of a dangerous situation for everybody. That's how he described it.
Yeah, I know. I was this is when I was young too. I mean, this is my first, you know,
that's awesome.
Fight in a ring. So I might have been a little brash. You know, these guys were talking so much shit when I was walking out, and I'm in the ring, and I'm like, I'm fucking looking at these guys like, wait. So when I won, I was definitely saying some shit. I'm sure.
Hey, it's always fun being on the road, and like when you quiet the crowd, it's always fun, man. You can.
Oh yeah.
I love it when like you can hear a pin drop after your fight. It's like, what happened? Yeah, that guy was
that's right.
I love it.
That's right. Nothing better.
Frankie, when Mike mentions that you had a tall, skinny guy talking shit, do you know who he's talking about, or is it fading with time? But it'd be funny if you could point him out now.
I don't know. I mean, the crew is a little different now. I said there's definitely some guys that were there that been to every single one of mine. So I don't know if it's one of my main guys.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
Needless to say, the guy remembers it, you know, over 10 plus years later. So you wait 3 months and then you fight Ring of Combat, Lou Neglia's show with Mark Getto. So there's quite a big difference in regards to not only talent level, but Eric at the time, Uresek, was very well respected on the regional scene. But Lou Neglia also had a really good product with Mark Getto.
Yeah, Lou was great. I mean, you know, a lot of guys came through Lou's show, Ring of Combat. You know, Weidman, Serra, Dante Rivera, you know, a bunch of guys, all the guys that came out New York and Jersey, all fought for Lou. So it was, and I love it too because they were Atlantic City, you know, and it kind of gave you the feel of a real big fight. You know, you're going down to a casino place, you're staying overnight in a hotel, and usually a decent sized crowd. It kind of gets you ready for the big show.
I agree. So you go through Mark Getto, people start kind of understanding that you're pretty good. Like you're definitely much more advanced for the time that you've put in training, because you really only got like 5 months in of training. And then you fight James Isip, who, man, this poor guy, Chris, this guy's like 1-4 with 3 future UFC vets. Like this dude, they must have hated him. They absolutely must have hated this guy. Do you recall the fight?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. That was up in Hobo. I took that fight like a week's notice. I remember I was coaching wrestling at the high school level, and I remember getting a call, and they were saying, "Hey, you want to fight?" I'm like, "It's a week." I was like, can I swing it?" I remember I had to talk to my coach, see if I could swing it and fit it in. And yeah, that was a good one. I don't think I threw a punch in that fight. I don't think I threw one punch. Yeah.
No, he was with like Team Endgame, and the one surprising thing is like you're still pretty new to the sport. Like you got you got like 6 months in, but you're already starting to kind of line up sponsors. One of your sponsors was it Anise Mechanical?
Yeah. That was my stepfather. So that's
is it?
sponsored again.
Nice.
Yeah.
That was cool though. I mean, it's kind of
Yeah.
cool to see like people getting guys, to the next level. Did you
Yeah.
work for him as well?
I did. That's why he let me take off on Friday. So I had, I was like, I'll wear your shirt.
Hey, so at this point, are you training like a lot? Are you training not full time, but are you training all the time at this point, or is it still just something fun, or are you just having fun?
I mean,
are you pretty dedicated?
Yeah, I'm training. I was coaching wrestling. I mean, this is I was working as a plumber. And then I was coaching high school wrestling. So I was on the job site from like 7 to 2, and then I would head out a little early, coach wrestling until about 5:30, and then I would go eat and then go train myself from 6 to 9. It was tough. It was a tough schedule for a couple of years until like once my third fight in the UFC, I finally retired from plumbing, I guess you could say.
But what weight class are you competing at here at the beginning of your career?
55. At that time, I don't think there was any other options, to be honest.
Okay.
What weight did you wrestle in college? What was your weight class?
I wrestled my 141.
Okay, so that's a pretty big step up then to fight 55,
Yeah.
man. I mean, you're not cutting much weight, or you naturally go.
I weighed pretty much 55. Yeah.
Nice.
What's crazy is you got Rob Kahn on the undercard, who's one of the first 13, 14 black belts under Hoist Gracie, who's a New York guy, and you're with Team Rhino at this time with Rob Garino. Am I correct? How was your training there? Because at that time they had like 60 pro fighters at that time.
Yeah. I mean, there was a bunch.
I think that's him.
Guys went there and just there wasn't much. That's good.
I think. Are you on Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
He just kind of faded away for a second. Go ahead.
Yeah, they had about 60 pro fighters. They were pretty like one of the more dominant teams from your region for a long time.
Yeah, no, they had a bunch. It was definitely more of just a fight team, As far as I would go wrestle somewhere. I had my box coach Mark Henry, who I'm with. I was actually with since the very beginning, and probably that summer that I started with him. No good here.
No, you're good. You're good.
Fine. That's good.
Yeah. I didn't know if I lost it again.
No.
Yeah. So I was lucky to, find Mark Henry early in my career, but Rhino was definitely great for me until I guess.
So it wasn't. Yeah, until it was time to go. Yeah, that happens.
Right.
And you really haven't been tested up until this time. And that includes like with Steve McCabe, that's in April. And then you run into, what in my opinion, your first real test, Deividas Taurosevicious, future AFL vet. And was he with Henzo at this time?
I might have been with some Gracie team. I'm not really sure.
He was with Henzo. Okay. What do you remember going into that bout? Because that's not an easy fight for you at this time.
Yeah. I mean, I was definitely, he had some pretty big wins or a bunch of fights. He looked apart. He was all shredded, jacked up, big guy. And
Russian.
I didn't know what to expect, I don't know what kind of fighter he was really, it's kind of hard to find stuff on guys back then. I just, you heard about him and heard he was good. You didn't really get to see much of him. So I out wrestled him. That's what I did. That's what I was really relying on my wrestling a bunch back then. So that fight, I pretty much just dominated my wrestling.
So Frankie, you're a really good wrestler. Everybody, the people know this. Are you just working on your hands a lot, or when did they really become so dominant? When did you was it just over time, or did you fall in love with the hands? How did that develop?
I think it was just over time, I always wanted to work it. Like I said, luckily I found Mark didn't train anybody. Mark Henry, who trains everybody, he didn't train. I was his first guy he trained, so it kind of just worked out.
Oh
wow!
And I mean, thank God I found. You never know what you could find. You can develop bad habits that way, and luckily, I had a good guy right back.
All right. So, man, you guys got to check this out. This is incredible. So his next fight, and Frankie's only been tested one time. His next fight, November 18th, 2006, Reality Fighting 14, which is like, I think Kip Kohler's event. Jim Miller.
Yep.
Fights
Jim
Miller on a local scene.
Wow.
Do you remember that fight?
Yeah,
Frankie?
that was what I do. I remember that fight very well. I know Jim was doing. I think he had the 45-pound title, and he was coming up trying to fight me for my 55-pound title. I think that's what it was. And we had a pretty good battle, man. He kicked off a piece of my ear actually on this side.
What?
Yeah.
You're kidding.
I don't know if his like toenail dug in or it literally pinched when it hit my head, but he hit me with a head kick. I thought I had my hand though, skipped off my head, and something went flying, and my ears, starts bleeding, and it's kind of funny. After the fight, there's a video after the fight. I guess the guy cleaned the ring. You hear the guy picks up my piece of my ear, and my dad thinks it's my tooth. My dad's like, hey, screaming, hey, give me the tooth. But they had that piece of my ear in the glass case at Rhino for a little bit.
Wow.
So do you have fights that are not on your record then, if you're the 55-pound title holder at that point for Reality Fighting?
I'm sorry, say it again?
You said you were the 155-pound champion. Do you have fights that are not on your record?
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, because Jim Miller is no joke. And obviously a super tough fight. Did you guys ever wrestle in college or high school?
No, not in high school. In college, we were actually supposed to. And he tells the story, actually. And he didn't make weight. He missed weight.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. He says, I think it says the only time he's ever missed weight.
He did on purpose. No. So how? What happened in the fight? Did you remember exactly how it went? Did you out wrestle him?
There's no video.
Did you out strike him?
Yeah, I think it was both. We were, I was letting the hands fly. I think I connected, rocked him a little bit here and there. I don't think I ever watched the fight. I don't think I ever had a video of the fight. Yeah, and but I think wrestling ultimately want me to fight. In the scrambles because he's good. They're wrestling too. But I think I just, he wasn't able to take me down. I was able to take him down, and win most of the scrambles. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, with you two at home, who do you think sold more tickets to that event?
I don't know. He's way North Jersey. I think I probably sold more. I think I sold more. I'm gonna take it.
Hey, I got a question here. So, there's a very good scene around New York and New Jersey and everything. Was there any I don't know if old school guys, was there anybody you kind of looked at like, oh man, you kind of looked up to as a fighter back then from the New York scene or from where you were? Who was really the big guys you guys liked back then?
I mean, for me, it was probably Matt Serra, because that's time and then Ricardo Almeida. Obviously, that's where I ended up training with him. But even before he was the local UFC guy that lived in my state. And, Matt Serra. I remember the first UFC event I went to was in Atlantic City, and I believe Matt Serra fought Kara Parisian, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Who else was the main event? Was I can't think of the name. Oh, Rich Franklin. Yeah, I think he fought Evan
Taylor.
Tanner.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, Miguel.
Well, I'm sorry. I was going to ask. So, Matt Serra, there are a couple of guys, obviously, with the jiu-jitsu guys too, Almeida, that you were influenced by. How about rivals in the area? Because Miller would have been like a rivalry Jersey fight, and then you kind of had Eddie Alvarez there, who you've never really met, but there's actually a lot of parallels between the two of you. What were your thoughts on that rivalry developing there? Because he's another big ticket seller too.
Yeah, no, actually, believe it or not, the first local, it's kind of funny. The first local event I ever went to was Eddie Alvarez. That was kind of I don't even think I was graduated from college. I think I was just home for the spring, and we went and seen a fight. And I remember Eddie went out there and blitzed some dude, knocked him out, and then does a huge backflip off the top ropes. I'm like, this guy is going nuts for him. I'm like, this guy's the man, And that's when he started. He just started killing, and it was cool because we got to train, not too much far after that.
Nice. Oh, cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that. You're lucky to find Mark Henry at such an early time. And, who knew at that point that he'd become such a special coach? I mean, he's an elite coach.
Yeah, he's definitely one of a kind. It worked out. His son was wrestling for my coach's club, and I would help coach, and they're kind of related through marriage or something. And my coach, Steve Rivera, who's my wrestling coach, still, a good friend of mine. He is the one that asked Mark. He's like, Mark, I know you box. He's like, why don't you hold pads, for Frankie and help him out? And Mark didn't want to do it. He's like, I don't know, I never did. He's like, just see what how you like it, see what happens. And now he's one of the top coaches, I think, in MMA. He's a special dude. He's very obsessive, and you still wake up in the middle of the night or in the morning with text from Mark about fighting or about something. He's a special guy.
Man, what's fortunate about that is you could get, I don't want to say you got lucky with that, but you could have went, and I've seen it many times when you have a good athlete, a good guy, and he works hard, and they just get mixed up with the wrong coach right away who's, a charlatan telling them a bunch of nonsense, and they don't know. They just dedicated to who brought them in, and then they're like, go down this wrong path. They're like, man, you got to get a new coach. You got to get away from that guy. He's toxic. But they don't know, and they're being loyal to their guy. That could have happened to you if it was the wrong guy. You got lucky and had a great guy. You know what I mean? But I've seen it go the wrong way many times. I'm just happy that it went the right way. You got a good guy in Mark Henry.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I've been lucky. My whole career from wrestling to this, I've had great people around me, and hopefully once you have one good guy around you, I think you figure out if the next guy's not good. So
exactly.
Yeah.
True. That's actually, there's a lot of truth to that. At UFC 67. They had a guy from California named Tyson Griffin, whose second fight, encompassed him having a win over Uriah Faber. So here in the Midwest, we're like, holy shit, that's a future world champion. Our understanding of what Tyson Griffin might be was, you don't want to take that fight, and that's your first fight in the UFC. How does that fight come together, and what were your thoughts going into it?
Yeah, that fight, I got a call from the UFC. I actually tried out for the Ultimate Fighter. I think a month or just a couple months before I got a call for the fight. And I guess, from me getting in front of them, hitting pads, whatever, they considered me to take a late replacement, because Tyson I don't know who he was supposed to originally fight. But I believe
it was a late replacement fight?
Yeah, I took the fight on 4 weeks notice. And yeah, and I got the worst sinus infection of life during that month before. For 2 weeks, I was out on my ass. I trained 2 weeks for that fight, really.
That's incredible. So, in essence, Frankie Edgar's making his UFC debut. He's 5-0. Tyson Griffin's 8-0. It's his second UFC fight. You're coming in with a black eye and on short notice, and your cardio is what won the fight.
Yeah, I was not I always train. I'm always kind of training, but yeah, I'll never forget. I've never really been out of shape after a fight, or felt out of shape, and that I felt out of shape after that fight. I remember throwing up on the way back from walking from the cage, throwing up, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I must have a concussion. I threw up, and I'm sitting on the ground, and I'm like, and I remember that they came in the back. He said, Lorenzo wants to talk to you. Lorenzo. I'm like, I don't know. I had no idea who Lorenzo was at the time.
Italian guy,
Yeah. I'm like,
fan.
I was like, dude, you gotta tell him to wait. I can't talk. I gotta tell him to wait. They're like, no, you gotta get up and talk to this fucking guy. So yeah.
That's funny.
In the third round, Tyson Griffin is just an absolute savage. You got two guys with no give. It's just the transitions and scrambles that you guys had in that fight makes it, in my opinion, a short list for the UFC or UFC Hall of Fame. And the reason is because in the third round with 45 seconds left, he hits a knee bar and he distorts your leg. And you're just looking at the time, and he's playing mashed potatoes with your knee. How tight was that?
It was it. My knee popped a couple times. Yeah.
You just said, I'm not tapping, right? I'm just forgetting.
Yeah, it was such a short time in the clock. I was like, I won this fight. I was like, I definitely won this fight. I see it. And once I got it past like the fulcrum point where like it stopped popping. So then I'm like, let me, I'm gonna give him some Charlie horse before we end here, finish strong. And I got up, adrenaline, I didn't feel anything until later on that night. I was a little bit.
Dude, it was nuts. And Steve Mazzagatti, to his credit, a lot of people kind of bag on him. He did a great job. I thought he did an incredible job. You two going back and forth. I mean, you guys were murdering each other. Like that was just a savage fight between the two of you. And how much time did you take off in between fights? Do you recall? Because of your knee? Like, how damaged was it?
I honestly didn't even get it checked out. It wasn't that bad. But I mean, it was hurt. I was jumping in at trenches that next week, and that kind of sucked,
So at that point, that's early Tyson Griffin too. Like Mike mentioned, he's
savage.
Was that
savage Tyson Griffin?
His corner was like David Terrell and those guys. Am I wrong or?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah,
like Terrell's like a Nick Diaz, like,
I know.
Like that branch of people.
I'm not sure if he was with him, but I don't remember. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and then like sometimes like fighters go to travel gyms, and that travel gym speaks so high of them that they get pulled into the UFC a little early. You end up getting Mark Bocek. He's Canadian, but Greg Jackson put his name on Mark as a high-end fighter, and you two end up meeting. And man, that was like he was 4-0, never passed the first round. He went to Jackson's, checked all the boxes there. Greg brings him in against yourself, and you kind of baptize him into the UFC. Do you recall that one?
I do. Yeah, that was a great one. I knew he was very dangerous. I think he was like 80cc vet. Real high level jiu-jitsu guy. So that's when I was like, all right, now, I've been working my hands a lot. Let's try to play the game where don't let him take me down, and we'll see how his hands are. And I was able to get him with a couple cracks until I felt comfortable enough to fall him to the mat and finish him with some ground and pound.
See, Frankie, you showed here, you don't have a lot of fight experience at this time, but you've got high-end experience, but not like a lot of miles. You showed a lot of maturity in it because you dropped him in like the first couple exchanges, and rather than jump on him and maybe kind of rush something that wasn't there, you showed patience and you waited. Is that something from like a lot of sparring and practice, or is it just a high in-ring IQ?
Yeah, I just think it was the high. I mean, I'm not that I'm saying I have this high ring IQ or anything, but I just felt in that fight, we did anticipate him, dropping him and not rushing to follow him down just because of his jiu-jitsu level, So maybe that was in my head. I knew kind of, take my time for this finish.
And you also got dropped for the first time in that bout.
I did. It was crazy. He actually hit me with a jab that literally hit just my nose. Nothing else. Like my head must have been side. I don't know how. My nose on the other side of my face though. After that fight, and he literally hit just my nose. And I got it was like a flash knockdown. I remember falling. I'm like, what the hell? And I got right up. But yeah, he definitely rung my belt. That gave me a concussion too, just from breaking.
Yeah. I have a question here. So I talked to some guys, and they do a lot of research on the fighters. They come up with the game plan. I talk to some guys like I just go in there and do my thing. I don't watch any video. Are you guys studying a lot, coming up with the game plan, or are you just going out there and fighting, concentrating on what you do? How are you handling things at this time?
I'm not I don't like watching video. I'm not really into that too much, but I watch everybody I fight. I'm a fan of the sport, so I definitely know who they are and their style. Okay. Once I have to fight them, I let Mark watch his video like crazy. Yeah, he'll force me to he'll put some video together. And what I do like to do is he films our sparring. That's what I watch. I watch myself sparring, during camp, a lot.
Yeah, that's good. Correct mistakes. Yeah. I remember doing that once because my coach like, you're dropping your hands. Like, no, I'm not. Then he recorded. I was like, oh. Yeah, I'm dropping my hands. You can't lie to yourself when you see it. So okay, I get it. But yeah, that's good. And I'm a firm believer. If a lot of people don't like to watch videos, but who cares? Just have your coach watch. You got to listen to him no matter what. So if you trust your guy and you have a good guy with you, it doesn't matter. You don't have to. He has to watch it. He tells you, leave this hand up, put that there, step forward that foot, and that's all you got to worry about. So as long as somebody's doing that work, you don't have to watch it.
Right. Agreed.
So Spencer Fisher has a savage war with Sam Stout, #2, the rematch. He tells Dana or Joe Silva at the time, I want to get one more in before the end of the year. That's Frankie's next opponent. Spencer Fisher. Dude, that's nuts. Like that's absolutely crazy. So Spencer Fisher, you fight him to a decision. He's 20-3 at the time, and he's a top 10 ranked opponent that just comes off that legendary fight. And you put on a wrestling clinic. Was that the goal at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the goal was. Like I said, me and Mark were heavily getting into the hands, and I remember after the fight, I got the takedowns were just they came too easy, so I had to take them. And I remember in the cage, I'm like, Mark, sorry, man. I'm like, the takedowns were just too easy, he was like handing them to me. So I had to take the path of least resistance out that one.
I think, Spencer probably at the time, if he didn't have the best hands, Sam Stout did. Like he probably had some of the best hands in the UFC, and it's not a guy you kind of want to test your stand-up on either.
Yeah, for sure. I knew, especially at that point in my career, I think that, the best way to do it was, take him where he's not so comfortable.
Yeah. And, coming from a wrestling camp too, like you'd figure, Spencer had been a little bit, a little more difficult to take down. And April 2nd, 2008, they line you up against probably one of the greatest UFC fighters never to have the strap wrapped around his waist. And that's your first bout with Gray Maynard. That's your first loss too. How hard was it dealing with that? Because that's something that you had not had up until this point.
Yeah, the first one sucked, man. It's just the whole I mean, losing sucks. So no matter way you spin it, losing sucks. And your first one is you think it's the end of the world, So that one sucked. Yeah.
So there was the first time that you ever been out wrestled in a fight. What do you think the difference was between the two of you?
He's definitely a bigger guy.
Huge.
Especially, come fight night. And he utilized that, I don't think I had at that time, me and Mark weren't meeting as frequently, and that kind of, and that was also before I was with Ricardo Almeida also. That fight kind of opened up opened my eyes though too, leading up to that fight. That was actually my first fight where I was training full time. I didn't work a job. And I kind of had a lot of time on my hands to train. And I feel like I didn't know where to train, didn't have places to train. Like the Rhino guys were okay, but sometimes we'd be calling ourselves the night before. I'd be calling people like, hey, can you guys train? I'm like, dude, I'm a professional athlete. This is not how professional athletes train. So I knew before the fight came that I was going to have to find somewhere. But I mean, I prepared the right way. I still was in shape, all that stuff. And, got all my sparring and all that stuff. And just didn't, the fight didn't turn out, in my favor.
What's amazing you're talking about there. You always learn a lot more when you lose. It's like when you win, no matter what, if you did things wrong, like, it worked out. You don't need to make changes, but all of a sudden you get a loss. Like, okay, I could do this. Your brain starts thinking if, the results do matter. And you're like, man, I got to do this different, and this different. Losing helps you learn so much more than a win. A win, I'm the best fighter in the world, and loss, like, what the hell went wrong there? So you kind of figured out, okay, now is that kind of what happened to you there? I got to figure out, I got to make this work better by doing this and this, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It definitely, like I said, even before the fight, I kind of knew I need to make some changes. Yeah. And the fight, the outcome of the fight definitely just, just heightened that, and really pointing that out to me.
That was in Colorado, which was the altitude something you learned a lesson about there too?
I don't know. I'm not a big guy with the whole altitude stuff. I went out and Tuesday, fought Saturday. I was a little tired in that fight, but I mean, Gray was big and I was wrestling, so I understand why I was tired maybe. But when I did fight in Denver again, I went out 2 weeks early to make sure.
Gray was a national champion wrestler in high school too. He was one of those athletes that got brought along from a real early age, priming him for a high-end athletic career.
Now, he was with St. Ed's. Yeah, he's been high levels his whole life, this kid.
He moved to St. Ed's just for wrestling in high school.
Right. Yeah, his left where he's from is crazy.
Did it feel like you had because the fight before with Spencer, that was in Jersey, right? So that had to be like the best feeling. And now you said like the dip down to the first loss and things was real hard on you. How do you bounce back from like that? Because that's like a real ping pong ball.
Yeah, I mean, the best way to bounce back is getting there and fight again and win. Like we always say, winning has a way of erasing bad memories.
What was your relationship like with Joe Silva? Because I'm about to rattle off a few names that all three of us are going to say, no, you shouldn't take that fight. So what was your relationship like with Joe Silva?
I mean, Joe is, he wants to throw you. He's cutthroat. He wants to make the hardest matchups, and I just say yes. Even today, and now that my manager is like, he knows, like, I'm like, dude, just whoever. I don't care. Don't ask me. Just pick. So that's just how I've always gone about it.
So they threw him up.
I hold on real quick. I always say, as a fighter, how can you turn down a fight? If you think you're the best, or you could be the best, or you want to be the best, I got to fight anybody they put money. If I start picking and choosing, I think that would mess up my confidence. I just want to fight anybody they tell me, and that's the only thing you do. Let the management deal with it. I remember one of my boxing guy. He told me about 2 months later. He's like, "Yeah, they offered me a fight. I didn't take it. It was going to pay like $5,000, which is a lot back then." I was like, "Why didn't you take it?" He was like, "It was Andre Ward." I'm like, "Andre who?" He's like, "Olympian, 6-0 as a pro now. He'd have beat you." I was like, "No, he wouldn't." He's like, "Yeah, he would." I was like, I looked him up and like, "Yeah, he'd have beat me." But they didn't offer me that. They didn't even tell me about it because they knew I'd say yes. And your job is to say yes, and their job is to not give you fights.
Right.
So you have to have the mentality if you think you can be the best. That's my thought.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. And yeah, just once you stop thinking like that, it's not a good place to be in a fight game.
Stuck in the middle.
There's a lot of fighters who do that. They start picking and choosing. I'm just like, I'm like, I don't understand the thought process. I mean, I'd feel like a coward not doing it, and I wouldn't be able to not look myself. I don't know. I just wouldn't have the same confidence, I don't think, if I'm turning down fights.
That's why promoters love people like me and you, buddy.
I know we're too stupid for our own good and just fight.
So his next fight is a fresh off a world title bout, Hermès Franca, who I think he almost landed an armbar in that first round. How close was that?
Oh, it was close. It was close. I jumped and flipped and spun, and I don't know how the hell I got out, but that was another moment where I was like, I'm not tapping. So let's try to get it out.
Frankie was doing like the Matrix, dodging bullets, just trying to get his arm out of there. Yeah, Hermès, he's his most dangerous when he's tired. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I remember Hermès, like, even like when I was on top of him, hitting on the side of his head. I'm like, how the hell is he hitting that hard from his back? He just had those long arms, and that's why he kind of threw punches on his feet, just almost hit you with the side of his hand, and he had he was dangerous. His knee, he actually split my chin open first time. I got my chin split open. Now it won't stop splitting open. And he's pretty dangerous guy.
Yeah, when he's tired, he's gassing. He just throws fastballs. So there's no setup. It's just hammer, hammer, hammer. And he got you at the end of the third round. And it kind of showed how durable that you were as a fighter, because I think about 90% of that locker room, had they got touched by that, Hermès would have had to come from behind victory.
Yeah, I guess it's good to be able to take a shot. Just trying to do it too often, I guess.
No. So Miguel, at this point, the WEC is a 145-pound division with a title attached to it, and Frankie won't go to the WEC. Why is that?
I just didn't think I needed to. I was winning. beating guys that are fighting for titles. And I just didn't want it. I just felt like that was the easy way. Not that it was the easy way. I mean, obviously guys are good in all different
Mike
ways.
Brown.
It's a step down, man. He felt like it was a step down a bit.
Yeah, I just wanted to challenge myself, So to me, the 55 was what that's the real goal. UFC. I wanted to be I finally made it to the UFC, and I wanted to be a UFC fighter, not a WC fighter.
Man, his next fight's UFC 98, Sean Sherk. They are doing you no favors, bro. Frankie, they're not doing you any favors.
Well, let's let Frankie chip in on this. Frank, you didn't make the Ultimate Fighter, so you're not on that, contract that was like 12 and 12, 14, 14, 16 and 16. What will you share with us? What are they doing with you? Because obviously you're putting on fight of the night performances, fighting top flight guys here and stuff like that. I mean, I bet you're paying dues here if you want to share with us.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going up the ladder pretty what most guys were. I think at that time I was managed by this guy, I forget this guy Dean something. I think he was managing a bunch of people. I had some pretty bad management until I got with the management I'm with now. So yeah, I had three. I don't want to say bad. I had two.
Dean Albright.
Dean Albright, yeah, Dean Albright. Yep. I was with Dean Albright for a little bit. My first manager, this is crazy. My first manager, I didn't know. I was making $500. I was working as a plumber. I was making $500. I'm like, dude, I take my money. I don't give a shit, And I signed an old school boxing contract, 33 1/3%.
Oh.
So for my first fight in UFC, I only got 3-3, but I got $20,000 fight of the night for Tyson Griffin, and this dude took 33 1/3% of it.
Including your fight of the night?
Yes.
Who was it?
Yeah. Steven Katz.
Oh.
So
should be in prison.
Lesson learned. I got out of that contract though, because it was this guy put us under duress and made us sign it. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Oh, for sure. True. And then I think you were also managed by a guy, was it Clint Claus in Minnesota?
No, we did some stuff. We did a work together. I did MMA instructional for him.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Frankie, I went psychotic on your background, so I'm apologizing.
Yeah, you did. That's good, man. Jeez. Oh, I don't know if I got to be careful here, I guess.
Yeah. So you wind up with Matt Veach, who was with Mark Fiore, the Hit Squad. It was kind of like was it Miletich breaks up, Hughes and Lawler open up Hit Squad with Fiore, and immediately they have like a big reputation here in the Midwest. And you fight Mark Veach, who's a stud wrestler, and 11-0. Did you have any issues going into that fight?
No, I was supposed to fight Pellegrino actually, and he got hurt or something. So then Matt Veach stepped in, and yeah, I mean, he was big. He was big. I remember that's what I remembered about that fight. And he took me down like a couple times in the first round, and I remember
Slammed you.
Yeah, I was like, man, but he slammed me. And I got up and slammed me. I got up and slammed me. I got up and then I got out. But I was like, you just picked me up 3 times, buddy. I think I'm gonna be a little tired.
Yeah.
And that's exactly pretty much what happened. That's kind of caught him with a good right hand. Got him little. I guess he kind of fell, and I jumped on his back and was able to choke him.
All right. So politics are incredibly important in the mixed martial art game, like in a regional level, but very rarely does it kind of come to a head publicly at the UFC level. Like it's definitely taken place, but like it's a little more quiet. So you wind up with BJ Penn in a title fight, and you got Gray Maynard yelling on the sidelines, wait a minute, that's my fight. I deserve that. What took place for you to kind of slide in and get that to where Gray believed it was his?
I think it was. I remember I fought that fight, and I think after I went to a fight between Gray and Nate Diaz, and I think it was their second fight or something like that. And it was just a little uneventful. And I don't think
Joe
Gray,
Silva.
yeah, right. I think Gray won, so it was a little uneventful. And since I just got the finish, I think they gave it to me because I got a finish, and that fight was a little boring.
Well, and you know, they'll be the first to admit they want exciting fights, and you know it going in. So if you're going to go out there, this isn't just about whoever wins and loses. This is entertainment business. You know what I mean? So that is a big part of it, and they're going to be straight up and honest with you. Like if you're like watching paint dry, they're not gonna push for you, man. So it is what it is.
They punished him for a bad performance.
Yeah, I mean, for real, that's true.
Yeah. So
let me ask you, how was the heading into the title fight, like in the build-up? I believe this was
BJ
their very
Penn.
first. I know, but I think it was their very first time in Abu Dhabi. At least it was one of the real early shows. How was your Abu Dhabi experience?
It was. This was the first time in Abu Dhabi. It was all. I had an amazing time. I went out there, you know, for the press. I think the fight was in April. I think we went for press in February. You know, it's a totally different world, man. I had to get a passport. I don't think I had a passport. I had to go get a passport. and yeah, it was Renzo Gracie was on the card, so that's why I was very special too. And
wow.
Renzo's like royalty out there, so you know, got some cool experiences.
Cool.
Here's the thing.
Part of Team Renzo. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, here's the thing with this. So BJ is kind of known for having some cardio issues. He brings in Marv Marjanovic to help him with cardio, and he finishes Diego Sanchez. I think he's finished him in the third round. Yeah, in the fifth round. He finished Diego Sanchez in the fifth round, which is like unheard of for BJ Penn. So you're looking at a guy coming in here that's like, one, he's a next level guy. And then two, he's got his cardio that's going to last him for 5 rounds. They really looked at you as just kind of like a little sampling for the Sheiks, and he was going to put on a show. What was it like? Like, was there head games going on with you going into this?
Not for me. I mean, I remember, you know, nobody believed I could win. You know, I mean, sometimes I think I was wondering if my coaches even thought I could win. And, you know, I faked myself, you know, I told myself I'm going to win, you know, and you don't believe it when you first tell yourself, but the training camp I put in, the work I put in, I conned myself into thinking I'm going to win, you know, and I went out there and I said, when I looked across BJ's, I'm going to win this fucking fight. And, you know, I was luckily able to do that.
I tell you what, too, like BJ Penn hadn't been taken down in 6 years. He went 5 rounds to Diego Sanchez, and he stuffed every single one of Sanchez's takedowns. I think when you got your second takedown, I think mentally, like that water got deep for him. I think that's where it kind of freaked him out.
Yeah, you know, definitely. I knew the takedown was going to be a big factor, and you know, you get him down, that's big. And I mean, that really rolled over to the second fight more so than even the first fight.
Here, Miguel, at one point, Matt Hughes has got BJ's leg up in the air with his like foot pointed at his chin and couldn't take BJ Penn down. Frankie comes away with 2. And in between second and 3, you got your guy telling you, take it to the ground, and you decide to stuff BJ's takedowns instead of going to the ground and, you know, keep it on your feet. It was just a heroic performance.
Yeah, it was. It was. I remember watching it with a production crew. There was like 4 of us in the room because it was at a weird time because you guys were in Abu Dhabi. And the other 3 guys thought BJ won, and they didn't announce the winner. And I walked out of the room to get something. I said, that's real complicated. I don't think so, though. And I just walked out and I came back and they were like, oh, you were right. You were right. So you made me look very good. But how did you feel when the cards, like before the cards were picked? Did you think he's their boy? Did that thought cross your mind?
It kind of was.
You know, I kept telling myself I was being positive. You know, I didn't want to be negative. And I think when they read 50, the first score, I don't know if I agree with it, but it was 45-50. And I'm like, fuck. I was like, I definitely won rounds. I was like, that has to be me. That has to be me. You know what I mean? I was like, I won rounds, but it has to be me. And Yeah, it was. It was crazy. It was wild.
So the belts didn't fit around Frankie's waist. That's how small he was.
Yeah. Wow.
They kept trying to buckle it in, and it's like a hula hoop.
Now, was BJ cool? Like, what was BJ like, especially in defeat? Because sometimes he's got that rep of being a little bit cocky. What'd you
Kind of a
experience?
dick sometimes. I agree.
Yeah, BJ was cool, man. I remember actually running into him in the back right after, and for like the drug test or something, and I don't know, he said something like, "Hey, keep that belt, champ." And I'm like, "Call me champ." I was a little taken back by it, but he was all respect.
Wow.
Good.
I guess that's the first time you got called it. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. So the belt doesn't fit around his waist. There's a rematch at UFC 118. And dude, you're playing head games at this point because BJ's coming in thinking, all right, this has got to be a one-dimensional fighter. It's going to be the same fight. Dude, Frankie goes in and grabs 3 takedowns in the first round. I remember as a fan watching that going, what's he doing? What's he doing? And he did the exact opposite of what you knew 90% of BJ's training went towards. Was that intentional?
I mean, I just from the first to the second fight, the first fight, like I said, I believed I could win. I believed I could win. After that first fight, I knew I could win. So now it's like, all right, I'm the man, I'm the champion. And I kind of wanted to be the alpha in a sense and just take what I wanted to take.
Yeah, they say that it makes you 30% better sometimes winning a belt.
Is it Bob Arum said that? Yeah. Yeah. He said a title, it just unlocks the mind and makes somebody 30% better than they actually are. Because I remember watching this. I'm like telling my brother, I go, Frankie's playing head games. Like he's doing the exact opposite of what BJ's trained for. And, he's beating them at a prior strength and he worked on his weaknesses. It was just, man, that was wild. That was a wild game plan. And it's followed by the greatest rematch in UFC history. So there's a Jay Burgos who writes for MMA.tv, wrote an article about the top 10 greatest rematches in the UFC history. This fight did not make that list, which is, man, dude, I literally almost threw my phone.
Yeah, stop
So
writing.
you go up against Gray Maynard, and he's 11-0-1. You're 13-1. Your only loss is to Gray Maynard. Would you mind walking us through this? Because this is nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it was a banger of a fight. And I honestly don't really, during the fight, I don't remember much of the fight, and I know, obviously, everyone knows first round, I got rocked pretty good. And I think in the fourth, going fourth in the fifth, or in the fourth round, I remember coming to. That's the kind of when I came to. And I remember wondering why my ankle was killing me. And I'm moving around. I'm like, damn, what's up? I had no idea. I go look back. I got dropped, and I pretty much fell back on my foot. I rolled my ankle really badly, and then I remember sitting fourth round, the fifth round. Mark's like, you got one more round. I'm like, one more. In my head, I'm like, one more round. I'm like, what happened to rounds 2 and 3? I'm like, one more round.
Wow.
Who, me?
Yeah. And
Cool. Is this a 3-round fight?
And then after the fight, we're in the back, and I'm upset. And Mark's like, dude, wait till you see this fight. He's like, just that you picked him up, you took him down. I'm like, I took him down. He's like, bro, you took him down like 3 times, 4 times. Like, I'm like, what? I had no idea. No idea.
So
yeah.
Let me set this table just a little bit so everyone home can kind of get brought on, because we interviewed Gray Maynard in regards to this, and we've got his recollection, so we got to get yours accurately on it. So in the first round, Gray Maynard drops Frankie on 4 different occasions, ugly knockdowns with Frankie just kind of stumbling around, and you're not mounting any offense whatsoever. In between rounds, your corner's going, relax, we're good. He's got to be tired. Relax. I tell you what, man, you going back to a corner like that, most corners would have just kind of all right, Frankie, can you guys open this door? We're going to get out of here. And your corner your corner was so stoic. Like even if they didn't think, like if they thought you're in deep water, they didn't let you know. They just kind of kept you calm.
Yeah, no, they did. Come to find out, Mark, later on tells us a story that he almost threw it, which I don't even think you can throw a towel in a UFC. I've never seen it done before. But he said he almost threw it in. I think Ricardo grabbed it from him or something like that. So thank God, I would have killed him.
So I'll point him in the second round, and Gil Martinez and Randy Couture, they're in Gray's corner. They're begging him not to throw power shots because they know his gas tank is like on E, and people recover different ways. Like, there's different types of cardio, and Gray's obviously all explosion, where you're kind of, you're a cardio guy. You're a marathon runner. So in the third round, I thought Gray outpointed you, but man, the two judges gave that round to yourself and one gave it to Gray. Like the third round was the tricky round, in my opinion. So fourth round, you got all four. In the fifth round, man, dude, I think Marcos Rosales was the lone judge that gave you the fifth round, and it had flipped the card around to 47-47. Do you remember what you did after it was brought to your attention it was a draw?
I dropped the I dropped the belt.
Dude, this guy won the 155-pound title, defended it. He's got the belt. You didn't drop it. You threw it on the ground, bro. Like, you were disgusted by it.
I felt like, honestly, I mean, like I was probably on Queer Street, number one. And, it felt like a loss to me. It felt like a loss, And like I said, I didn't know what I just did. I had no idea how that fight went. I was like, I lost, it was a draw. Damn, what did I do? So that's going through my mind.
So when we interviewed Gray, he got kind of emotional when we were talking about this with him. Like it affected him. And, I pointed out that you threw the belt on the ground, and it's the exact same reaction, I believe, had your roles been reversed. You guys are very similar when it comes to winning. Like there's no participation awards happening in your house, for you or your kids. No. So I think Gray is kind of in that category as well. Like it made, like, I was a fan, but right then and there, like, it made an indelible impression. Like, this guy doesn't even want the belt he earned.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
But
so
you know
rematch,
what? Hold on, Mike. But when everybody else is watching that fight, trust me, that's not what they're thinking. Everybody was pretty much in awe of you right there, just amazed. Like, when you're watching the first round, you're like, I can't believe he's still alive. When you're just getting dropped all the time, like, how's he still fighting? And then to come back and get a draw that was, utterly, nobody would have thought that. I mean, that just showed everything about it. He's like, dude, I love the way this guy fights. You know what I mean? It was so impressive to everybody. That's why it's probably one of the best, rematch. Like, Jesus, man, I cannot believe how that fight went. After the first round, if the betting odds on would have been like, 10,000 to 1 for you to win or something. You know what I mean? So it was pretty phenomenal. You were able to come back and do what you did.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah,
it's cool to watch.
That was a special one.
That's like the stuff that makes you want to watch fighters, and this is what fighters are about. That's the type of stuff, like, man, these guys are just the best people in the world, the best fighters, the toughest guys in the world. There's no doubt.
You have a heroic battle, Hall of Fame worthy fight with Gray Maynard, ends up as a draw. Where is your head at with him at this point after the fight? Because you guys are going to have to go again.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted that fight. Obviously wanted that fight. I wanted it. Just didn't feel like it had any finality to it. Especially he had a win over me to begin with that before that, and I wanted to go, finally get a dub against him.
Was it bothering you at all after watching that first round?
I mean, no. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it just bothered me that I didn't win. If anything, I think watching that first round, I was proud of the way I handled it, I guess.
Dude, incredible. So you guys get a rematch. It's supposed to be May 28th, and it gets canceled. Both of you guys get injured. What was the issue on your end?
Mine was my back. my back and actually my rib. It's always two things for me to make me go, you know. And I was dealing with a back issue, and that was bothering me, but I was trying to get through it. I was doing my best to get through it. Then I popped my rib, a cartilage in my rib, and both of those things together kind of just, I tried competing, just threw my back out, couldn't walk at all really for a little.
So are your sparring sessions pretty intense?
Very. Yeah. We pour during fight camp, you know, we usually pour it on pretty good.
Okay. So your rematch at UFC 136 against Gray Maynard, do you remember the first round?
Kind of the same thing. You know, I don't think this one was as bad, but I did get dropped again, and I came to much like I remember the fourth round, and I remember the end, but you know, in the first, like the second, third round, still a little foggy to me.
So you get rocked by an uppercut, and then like a giant knee that like clearly breaks your nose. Like if you didn't have like a sleep apnea machine prior to this fight, you definitely had it afterward. You know?
Yeah, I know it's been busted up quite a few times though. Yeah.
So that happens. It's probably about 10-8 round. I think we can safely agree. And it kind of seems like, you know, it's a repeat of the first fight, you know, with the exception of Gray Maynard now has the knowledge to understand he shouldn't blow his load, just kind of, you know, ease up a little bit. And you end up winning rounds 2 and 3 again. So was that your kind of game plan, just to be kind of consistent in there?
You know, I just knew it's just like after the first fight, just listen to my coaches, keep my feet moving, and try to throw a lot of volume. That led to the finish.
Yeah. So after in the fourth round, there's a crazy scramble. You land like a right hand that stuns Gray. You continue throwing that right hand until you know, they stop the fight. And it's like you got a trilogy: a loss, a draw, and a win.
Yeah, hey, you find a way, right? Little engine could type thing, you know.
Just kept getting better.
Yeah. You know, that lead up to that finish. Actually, you know, I remember Mark telling me, his coach will say, you know, when he turns southpaw, throw the right hand. And I was southpaw for a second. I hear his coach say, throw the 2 when he's southpaw. So I was switched right back to southpaw. He throws the 2. I shot on him. He sprawls. That's when I got it on that sprawl. That's when I hit him with the uppercut, and that started the finish of the 2 right hands. So all from listening to not only my coaches, listening to their coaches a little bit.
Nice.
Yeah, you guys play head games that way. Like with BJ Penn, the second bout, it couldn't have been any clearer. Like it's one thing preparing, but then it's like you got the kind of the architects and the chemists that mix the ingredients. Man, you're coming from a high end camp. Have you ever like microdosed with psilocybin at all?
I never microdosed, but macrodosed.
Okay.
My man.
Good for you.
Yeah. Huh. So that's it. Like fight questions out of me. I mean, it's shocking what an incredible career this gentleman has.
Yep. Hey, I got a couple of questions for you here. So we're through the Maynard fight, and like you said, I think you pointed out that the draw was a special fight to you and stuff like that. But I mean, for fans, for most people, you know, you've been walking in that special fight territory here, like exclusively for like a good 2 years here with the UFC. So from your perspective now, looking back at them, BJ Penn, Gray Maynard, like
Sean Sherk.
But between those two, you know, how do you rate them? Like who do you worry? Like who, yeah, like rate them for me.
Yeah, I tell you, like for me, like BJ had the aura back then, especially because you know, when I first started, he was the guy he was, you know, annihilating people. I watched him, you know, beat up Gomi, and I don't know if it was actually, maybe it wasn't Gomi, but you know, he's licking Stevenson's blood off his gloves. You know, head kick AO and Diego Sanchez. He's choking out Kenny Florian. Like, these dudes aren't even giving him nothing, you know. And it was and just like, even like we went to Abu Dhabi, he was super cool. Everybody loved him, man. He was just, you know, everywhere he went, everyone loved him. So I could feel his aura, you know, and to go out there and beat him is going to be special. And it's always winning that world title the first time. You know, like I said, I competed a lot, and, you know, I told you you hear second a lot. It took second a lot. So to finally, you know, come and take first place and win that world title, that was just everything to me.
What do you tell yourself mentally? Like, what is your mental preparation to kind of get yourself up? Because I don't think there's a more mentally strong fighter that we've had on this program. And I mean, we had Mark Coleman here, so.
Yeah, you know, I got, you know, the whole mental stuff. I try to make it not mental. That's kind of a mental way to do it. I don't know, but it's just, you know, people get in their own head and they get in a way. Like, I just know that I always prepare the right way. I do, even in wrestling, my whole career, barring, you know, maybe I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve, but I always did everything the correct way. I mean, I trained right, I ate right, I slept right, you know, all good habits, all good training habits. I, you know, worked hard, you know, everything. So, you know, when you could do those things, it's you know, good things happen.
Huh.
So I thought I heard at one point somebody was talking about, and I might have the facts wrong. Did you give like a pregame speech or pep up, like was it the Jets once? Did you? And it really, I think it motivated those guys.
It was the Eagles.
The Jets,
Who?
not Jets. It was the Jets.
It was the Jets.
Okay, so do you do a lot of public speaking? Do you do a lot of things like that, or trying to encourage people? Is that something you do a lot, or is that like a one-time thing?
I've done it, you know, quite a few times. It's not something I pursue, maybe, but, you know, when it comes across my desk, I always jump on it. I'm actually probably doing one next month too, at a local men's motivational type thing. So,
Nice.
you know, I like to do stuff that scares me, I guess. You know, I'm not the best speaker. I try to work on it. I try to get better at it. So, you know, stuff that scared me, I'm you know, always regret saying yes, but I'm glad I did.
Yeah, no, the stuff like that. So awesome. No, I always, you know, when I tell people things like that, you know, that's to me, it's like fighting. The only way you do better is by sparring. You know, the only way you spar is by doing more things like that. And you get better at it. And, you know, that's what you have to do if you want to be better at anything. You just do more of it. And now I just remember hearing that they really, whatever you said, I don't know what it was that it did, but I know
Your playoff game, right?
It got them fired up, man. It really did, and I think it worked. So congratulations, and man, I love anything you can do like that. Keep doing. Just you know, makes you an overall better person. It helps people out, man. I love it.
No, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely it's good to give our, you know, the knowledge that we have, you know, experiences we have. Not many people have that. Not people look at things the way we do. So it's good to share that with some other people.
I got one more take you back nerdy question though. Sorry.
Oh, good.
So at this point in your career, we're going to have you back for part 2. Now, I consider at this point, you're at the high point of your career. You got the belt. You've defended the belt in heroic
Couple weight
fashion.
class.
Yeah, in heroic fashion. You know, you seem to be kind of an easy guy to deal with. It seems like, what is your relationship with the UFC? Because part 2 of your interview is going to deal with what I consider, you know, one of the biggest disrespects that was coming was, you know, where they gave, you know, McGregor a spot that probably should have been yours, but we'll talk about that later. But what was your relationship to this point? Did you feel taken care of? How was that as we go into part 2?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I did feel like I was taken care of. I'm a simple guy, you know, and winning definitely, you know, like I won at the right time. You know, I won at the right time, and I felt like I was taken care of. You know, like compared to other athletes, you know, of course not. But in this world, yeah, in the world that we were in, yeah, you know, I felt like I was always taken care of the right way.
And what was it like training with Almeida? That guy's a stud.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I'm still trained under him now, so twice a week I'm at his place. But yeah, it was good. It was actually, I used to spar him a little bit. He's a lot bigger than me because back in the day we'd have, you know, all the sparring partners, and yeah, he's just such a you know, very, very, very technical jiu-jitsu guy, and really breaks down fights very well. Him and Mark complement each other, because Mark's a little bit like, I don't want to say scattered, but just every 1,000 things going, and Ricardo's more like a samurai, more precise.
Did you ever roll with Matt Serra?
I have, yeah.
Man, he was so far ahead of his time back in the day. Like, he was a generation ahead, in my opinion.
Yeah. He's one of the heaviest guys a top game I ever had on top of me, actually.
And he's hard to do anything too, because you think you got him like he can move his legs and hips, and like you're not holding him in side mount or anything like that. He can read everybody.
yeah. His hip dexterity is really, really, really good.
And another thing too, a lot of people don't realize he's just I don't know, he's one of the best guys in the sport. No matter what, he always treats people the right way. A lot of people wouldn't think he might be a lab, like, nah, man, Matt's as good as it gets.
He really is. Yep. I always tell a story. I think he was when he had the belt, and we're at one of the reality fightings, ran combats. And I'm just kind of sitting next to him. I wasn't I was just a regular, local fighter, and he's like talking to me. I'm like, fuck, is this guy talking to me? He's treating me. I was blown away. Just treating me like anybody else, as you should. But yeah, it was cool to see.
Yeah, it's a rarity, but he's a throwback guy. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to give a shout out to another Jersey guy, and my brother's a purple belt under Alan Teo. I don't know if you ever rolled with Alan.
No, I haven't, but I've heard of him. Yeah.
He's under Almeida too, so that's what I figured to mention.
Okay,
Mike.
I think we're out. Chris?
No, I want to thank you, Frankie, for taking the time with us, man. This means a lot to a lot of people who want people to understand where you came from and how you got in this sport, how you got from A to B. A lot of cool stories. So thank you so much for your time, and can't wait to talk to you again.
No, thank you guys. Really, always good to revisit these memories. So good time tonight, guys. Have a great enjoy the rest of the night.
Thanks, too, buddy. Thank you very much. Woo, Mike. We got another deep dive in the books. Another champion in the books. Frankie Edgar. Man, I love those East Coast guys, man. What do you think? How we do?
The management situation was interesting. Here's sometimes the issue that you come into. Frankie's very polished. I mean, he's been in the public spotlight for like 15 years now. And when you get to a certain level of polish and you're still in the game, there's still like a safety net that you make sure that you don't fall through.
Yeah. At the end of the day, if he still has a UFC contract, it wouldn't be,
much different.
No, I think it would be a situation where, you don't get the frankness of like a Joe Riggs where he's like, they treated me bad and stuff. So I don't know if we'll ever get that from Frankie because he's very level-headed, but I got to say we went for it. We didn't get it.
No, but he did talk about Dean Albright, talked about some of the other managers and stuff like that. Yeah. Dean Albright at one time was coming to be a very big power player and was just signing everybody. And, sometimes people like Dean or Ken Pavia, sometimes they take on a lot and they kind of leave loose ends out there. I'm going to say, like, another thing is if you listen to our John Fitch interview, him and his legal team have subpoenaed all of the emails and text messages from like these old school managers. When his case comes to light, all of those are going to be public knowledge. The names that were mentioned in this interview are 100%. Those text messages are going to be coming to light, and some of them are going to be pretty shocking to read about what they were saying about their own client whose best interest was supposed to be, at the forefront of the conversation, and the lion's share of money that they were taking to do that, I bet you doesn't equal what transpired in those messages. So that John Fitch case is going to be like, for us little, fanboys, I guess is what we're going to call ourselves in this instance. It's going to be shocking, and I can't wait for it. I can't wait.
There's a couple $1 billion in play, right? So it should be interesting. Frankie is a guy that, like I said, he's still with the UFC, right?
So, yeah.
So we'll see, but I think it was a very interesting walkthrough. One of the high level guys and one of the guys who's at the top of the entertainment ladder for the, company for the last decade and a half, as Mike pointed out, So I know he's near the end of his career now, and hopefully we'll get him back, relatively soon for the second half. I'm looking forward to it.
And he's coaching wrestling. Like he's going to be somebody that is a staple within the sport, and he's a class act. Like whenever you open up the newspapers, you're never going to read Frankie's name in a negative context. Like it's fantastic individual. February 5th, I'm in Tampa, Florida, world-class grappling. Please sign up for Smooth Comp. And that is my only plug so far. He had a couple people in Chicago at our last event mentioned that they listened to the podcast. It was really nice encountering them, while I had a heckler refer to me as Miguel, no Rogan.
Yeah,
like my name
Rogan.
was no Rogan.
You're not Joe Rogan.
No. Needless to say, my feelings were hurt. That's all I'm saying. I mean, that's why I'm here. And that's the only thing that's important in this world is feelings, Miguel. So February 5th, I'm in Tampa, Florida. Please come on out, sign up on Smooth Comp. That's it. Oh, Diamond Sportsbook, betdsi.eu. Please use promo code LytesOut. 50% cash bonus for every $1,000 that you put in, or for the first $1,000. And I will say, by doing that also helps us, and we greatly appreciate it. A lot of us like to have a little action on the weekends on the fights, and by you even making a deposit there allows them to know that you've heard this. So greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, if you're still listening, thank you very much. Chris Lytle, he's now officially bailed out. He no longer does outros with us at all because he's off plugging his whiskey now. So, check out consfinewines.com. They ship in the United States, and he's still out there moving some of that stuff. So it should be a lot of fun for the drinkers out there. And I don't have many other plugs, but that's the one for Chris. So
awesome.
Frankie Edgar is in the books, and hopefully we'll get him back for part 2. And the latter part of his UFC career, where I think the McGregor disrespect and stuff will make for definitely some interesting conversations with Frankie.
Absolutely.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.